Hi Liz, lovely to see you today. So we decided to just do this little video to talk about family constellations. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Amelia and I work as a therapist and I specialise in supporting those who've gone to boarding school. So, as part of what I do, so I do individual therapy and I do quite a lot of group work, online group work. And something else that I have found really helpful for myself in my own kind of personal development, as well as what I've seen clients of mine go and do, is family constellation work. And so I have decided, or we have decided, to put on a day specifically for those who've gone to boarding school. So I'd like to introduce you, Liz, or you can introduce yourself. Um, and you do, how would you describe yourself, what you do?
Okay, so over to me.
Thank you.
I run family constellation workshops. I've been running constellations. I've been doing constellations since about 2010. And you and I have worked together. Uh, I'm not a therapist. I am merely a constellation facilitator.
Can I
And
just say merely because actually what you do on that day
it's
is
amazing.
it, it is amazing.
Yeah.
And to, yeah, not undersell it, I guess.
Yeah, yes.
Mm,
Constellations are amazing. And what do I need to say about them?
mm,
They are a way of, really, they're a way of disentangling ourselves from transgenerational trauma.
mm,
With people who've been to boarding school, so often I mean, not everyone, as we've just mentioned before our recording, but many people who are sent to boarding school, that's what their family have done for generations. So nobody knows any different. And I'm not telling you something you don't know, Amelia, the whole boarding school story is, the story of losing your whole family, being sent to a total institution where you're not fully seen, and being told you're privileged. Oh my God, what a tsunami of loss for a child! What a
yeah,
tsunami of loss.
yeah.
And then from there on, you learn to consistently minimize your experiences and minimize the bruises and the emotional bruises and hurts as well as the
Mm,
physical ones. You learn to minimize them just in order to stay present and get through boarding school. You know more about that than I do, Amelia. But all I know is what I see from when I've had people come to
mm,
workshops who've come from boarding school. Funnily enough, you can actually, and I couldn't tell you how, but I can often spot it before someone's
no.
even said, we set up a constellation, we might start working, and I can see something, and I go, "Oh, did you go to boarding school?" And they go, "Oh my God, how could you tell?" And
But can I? When you know, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
And
something about that.
it's not your accent, it's not the cut of your shirt. It's that, oh God, it's that heart-wrenching loss of your mother at too young an age. Oh,
Mm, yeah.
um and and
Well, it's really lovely to hear your own observations about it,
mm,
because you didn't go to boarding school, is that correct?
no,
Yeah.
no,
And it's really wonderful. I'm always really touched by hearing people who haven't gone to boarding school who recognize it, who can
yeah,
kind of validate that loss, because that's something that so many, ex-boarders struggle with, to feel like they're not entitled to say, actually, there have been some costs to me going to boarding school.
they
Uh,
lose everything.
yeah.
I did a piece of work once, many years ago. It was a large group of people, well, for me, large, 20 or 30 people were there. And somebody was there, he'd been sent to boarding school, and his mother had been sent to boarding school age 4 from
Mhm.
Africa, I think. And so she was sent, we set it up and we brought in the representative for the mother. I can't remember the other representatives, and people in the holding circle, because in a constellation you have this big circle of people sitting watching as a drama unfolds. There were people in the holding circle were sobbing, and one person just said, "This is child abuse. This is
Uh,
abuse, child abuse. It's
uh,
neglect and abuse."
yeah, absolutely. It's that word neglect, actually.
Oh,
It's really powerful, but it's very hard for people themselves to use that word when kind of, yeah, describing what they went through often.
well, neglect is so hidden.
Mhm.
It's not. There's no bruises. There's no marks. It's
Absolutely. Yeah, and then with boarding school, you get told the opposite of that. So
mm,
it's really hard to kind of come to terms with that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could talk me through or talk us through how it would look. So if someone decides, right, I want to go and spend a day doing family constellations with Amelia and Liz,
Mhm.
what would it look like?
Well, we will have probably 5 issue holder places, but we will have hopefully we'll have a nice big group of people.
Mhm.
Um, and what happens in a constellation workshop is one person will come along and be the issue holder. So they'll sit and have a chat with me about what it is that is not working very well in their life and what it is that they would like to have work a lot better. So obviously, going to boarding school can really affect how you are in your marriage
Yeah,
and how you behave to your spouse and how you able not just to show up, well, both to show up and be honest and true in your experiences with
yeah,
your spouse.
authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, authentic and thus able to build some intimacy and trust.
Mhm.
Um, so we would so we would have 5 issue holders. Um, one person will sit down, we'll chat about their issue, and then we will set up a constellation. And constellation really means placement in relation to another. So you have constellations of the stars because it's where the stars are placed in relation to another. And this is a family constellation, so where you're placed in relation to another. And the constellation is sort of like a living map. So we will ask somebody to represent your mother, someone to represent you, someone to represent your father, probably somebody to represent the boarding school system, probably someone to represent the requirements of your family to attend boarding school and
Mhm.
to be dutiful and pass down that family heritage. Um, and then a drama will unfold. And that's the kind of the magic of constellations that people don't really understand or even believe until they've been in a constellation. So somebody might say, it might be that your father is just saying, I only want to look out the window. I'm not interested in any of this. I only want to look out the window. And the person representing your father, that this is what they're experiencing. I'm just asking them to report back what their physical experience is. And we use people's physical experiences um, to change your internal picture of how you see a situation from a stuck, very old picture to something a bit newer and fresher and something that enables more life energy in you. But Hellinger talks about enables love to flow more freely down the generations.
Yeah.
So if the father's saying, the representative of the father is saying, I can only look out the window, I might bring in someone to represent what he's looking at, or I might give him a sentence such as, I can't look at you. They're very simple sentences, but these simple sentences will unfold very touching, um, just very, very touching dramas. But when I say drama, that sounds like it's not genuine. It is. In fact, I just saw
It's
this
genuine.
post today on social media about how we respond to love and love being this amazing energy. But then there somehow or other these scientists were measuring these things. And actually, when you measure authenticity, when people are speaking truly authentically, whether it's love or grief or rage or loss, or happiness or joy, um, it's the authenticity that
Yeah.
really sparks energy and
Mhm.
sparks and enables movement.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing in a constellation.
And there's something that people do, like when you just described about the man saying, "Oh, I can't help but looking out the window." People
Mm,
often think, well, are they acting? Are they saying that? But
yeah,
it's a genuine feeling. So when
yeah,
I've played a role, suddenly, say if I were that person, I'd be like, why am I so propelled to look outside the window?
yes,
Um, and it's like, I don't know where this has come from, but I suddenly are. And
yeah,
the person may say, "Oh, that's interesting," because my dad was like really into nature or something.
yeah,
That there can be these kind of connections that just
yeah,
happen, don't they?
yeah. You get used to all sorts of amazing coincidences. I,
Yeah,
I'm very, very accustomed to those now.
absolutely. I was just thinking maybe I would describe because something that I think was really powerful when I did it most recently with yourself was um, it was to do, I wanted to look at some of the impact of boarding school and specifically with regards to my own self-care. Because that being something that a lot, talking about neglect earlier, a lot of ex-boarders really struggled to do. And what we did was there was an element where I at one point was playing myself and another woman played my younger part, so kind of my younger child. And she was looking up at me, this little girl, but she was a 40-year-old woman, tears running down her cheeks, just saying, please look after me, please take care of me, kind of imploring me as an adult to look after this small child. And then I kind of stepped towards her with your encouragement and said, I will take care of you. And I remember it being so moving. And it was even that I will brush your hair. Those things that my own mum never did for me because I was away at boarding school.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
and it was incredibly powerful. And you can think, well, why was that woman crying? Why was she? But she really stepped into that part somehow.
yeah.
Um, and the changes that I have seen within myself the months following are so profound. And it was only in a conversation, was it more recently, that I went, oh my God, I've just realized that was why I've suddenly like feeling so much better in myself or making more of an effort to look after myself or go to a yoga class or whatever. And it's something like you don't notice the power of this stuff, but that
You
was
don't. I
powerful.
mean, that's the other thing. There's two things I want to say about that. One of the things I love about constellations is sometimes something will be made visible,
Hmm.
and you go, "Oh yeah, I always knew that. That was always on
Yeah.
my shoulder," and you did, but you didn't see it. So
Yeah.
there's something about the constellations making things
Mhm.
visible.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the little girl and you're going, "Please look after me," that's absolutely what happens with neglect. If you're a child and everyone around you abandons you, then usually what happens is you abandon yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's like that you continue to grow as an adult, but you leave this little abandoned child
Hmm.
abandoned and often covertly, unconsciously running the show.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. That's what happens. Yeah. Especially in
Absolutely.
marriages.
And so but that piece of work where you see
Mhm.
your abandoned child in you
Mhm.
and you do the work to take care of that abandoned child and do that repair work, it's so
Yeah.
tender and
And it's
so
that,
fragile.
it's the reparative work. And this is why it's something that I think is a great adjunct, is that the right word? To kind of talking therapy or to the work that I do, because often a lot of the people that I work with, they can have quite a good tendency to intellectualize or to be quite cognitive, whereas this moves you into a different realm. This kind of, I've had experiences where suddenly the emotions have come out somatically which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
Actually, which leads us on to talk about the participant role, because, well, I'll ask you to describe the difference in that, and then I'll share
Okay,
my
that
example.
that is something I wanted to talk about, and often people really don't understand. People think they have to come and they have to do their own issue. I've got to be an issue holder. I've got to resolve this terrible problem.
Mhm.
But so often, if you come and you're a representative, you can get just what you need from being a representative
Yeah,
because you might be asked to represent, I don't know, somebody's dead uncle. And then it transpires you've got an uncle who died age 18 in the RAF in the Second World War. And so suddenly you're experiencing that person that you never met, but a little bit of you might be secretly loyal to, and you're getting to experience them
yeah,
uh, without doing your own story. So
mm,
sometimes it will reveal things to yourself about you and your own story.
yeah.
Um,
It's incredibly powerful, and that was a similar story to what happened to me. So I was taking part in someone else's constellation,
mm,
and this woman asked me to play her mother, I think it was. Um, and then it so happened that this mother's father had died when she was younger. And I was suddenly in this room, but playing this other person. And there was this man the other side of the room who was playing my dad. And I just started having all these feelings of kind of anger towards this man. And I was thinking, why am I feeling angry? Is this her feelings? Is this my feelings? Probably a mixture of both. Because then this man, this man, my father, came over to me and he held my hands and just looked me in the eyes and told me how sorry he was that he had died and that he had left me. and how proud he was of me. By which time tears were just coming down my street because my own father had died when I was a child.
Yeah.
And so something was being repaired here. He was saying the words that I'd never, ever heard, but would have loved to have heard. And I
Yeah.
remember him putting out his arms and I just clung on to him.
Yeah.
He was a 30-year-old man. He didn't even look like my father. But in that moment, he was. And
Yeah.
it enabled this grief to come out that
Yeah.
I wasn't aware was there in that moment.
Yeah.
That was me participating in someone else's constellation. She didn't know that my dad had died when I was a child,
No,
but
it's
that's the magic. That's what I'm
it's
saying.
absolutely extraordinary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weirdly, the only examples that I can think of at the moment are examples of my daughter's experiences, which would be not fair of me to share their experiences. But yeah, I mean, that happens absolutely all the time.
Yeah.
And then, in fact, what happens is the more that you do constellations, you have those wonderful experiences like you have where it's healing something in you. But then once you've done a lot, you then get to represent, I've done a lot of constellations, I've done a lot of trainings,
Yeah.
hours, thousands of hours probably, or hundreds of hours, I don't know, a lot. So once you stop being the person that gets to do the representing that you did, and you start to be the person that gets to represent the things like, I remember once representing the causes of someone's uh, chronic, for want of a better word, paedophilia. And I represented the causes of this man's paedophilia.
God, that's
Um,
incredibly powerful.
yeah, it was somebody else. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And
So you can
that
go
was
to these
extraordinary for me.
levels. Yeah.
I was standing there, and actually, it's so relevant because I was standing there as the causes of paedophilia, and I didn't feel anything, felt nothing, but I had images of boys having their heads flushed down toilets and being urinated on, and all sorts of absolutely horrible, horrible things, which I
Mm,
imagine happened at boarding school.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah,
Right. And that was behind it. Wow. So it can go to quite kind of depths, can't it?
yeah.
As
But
well.
for me, so I don't. I've never had my head flushed down the toilet and and all of those things.
Mm.
But it was an amazing learning for
Yeah.
me, an amazing learning
Mm.
about
Sorry.
wider systemic influences.
Yeah, that come in. So
Yeah,
there's probably something quite important to talk about here with regards to I suppose with regards to safety, with
mm,
regards to how the day is,
yeah,
because it can feel, and something, so what we are hoping to do is we're going to put on a day that's specifically for those who've gone to boarding school.
mm,
And part of the reason for doing this is because I know how helpful it can be, and also to provide a space for those who've gone to boarding school to come together. There's something we were just talking about being that participant rather than the issue holder. Material's going to connect with everybody all
yeah,
together.
yeah,
But there's a safety there in the fact that we all get it, to not have to worry about judgment from others about it. But when you're just talking there about the different roles, I was thinking at the end of a constellation, we de-roll, don't we?
We can de-roll. Not everybody
Yeah,
wants to be de-rolled all the time. If you get to represent a rebellious 16-year-old, you often don't want to be de-rolled from that. It's just so fun.
right. They want
You
to
go,
stay
oh,
in that place.
I'll stay being a rebellious
Right.
16-year-old. Uh,
Yeah,
so not everybody always wants to be de-rolled, but yeah, we can definitely de-roll.
yeah,
And when I don't think I de-rolled from that represents that role that I just talked about
mm,
because I just found it so valuable to
yeah,
have those insights. And anyway, it just sort of disappeared off.
yeah,
But for people for whom it's very, very powerful, yeah, we
mm,
can absolutely de-roll you.
yeah,
Absolutely. And the other thing is actually I want to talk about is just basic confidentiality and safety. Um, Partly because, as you've said to me in personal chats we've had, one of the things about boarding school is not feeling safe.
yeah.
Ah, you've frozen.
Oh, okay. My video,
Okay,
it will just come on and come off again.
okay. I
See.
think,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, hold on 1 second.
we can always start again.
My mouse has frozen.
Yeah, oh, there you are. Okay.
Are we
Oh,
back?
there you are. We're
Are we
back.
back?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how interesting. It all froze when I was talking about safety and confidentiality.
Okay.
And actually, what I was about to say is one of the things that you've shared with me is for people who go to boarding school in particular, it can feel really, really dangerous
Yeah,
to be vulnerable in any way.
yeah.
And I don't know if this is helpful, but and I don't know how likely it is that people will already know each other. But one thing is just come with nobody needs to even know your surname. And for me as a facilitator, I usually forget everybody's names anyway. I think it comes with the training because it seems to be a thing that people do. Um, but what I was going to say, the other thing I want to say is often when you do a constellation, because it's not only about yourself, it's about your whole family. You
Yeah.
can feel like you're being really, really disloyal. You can feel, and actually, I imagine particularly for people who've been to very upmarket boarding schools where there is a legacy of not talking about things and stiff upper lip and maintaining maintaining the right image. So I think that
Yeah.
could feel really quite
Well, I'll
nerve-wracking.
say that's often the feeling for anyone who's gone to any type of boarding school.
Yeah.
That people often, what happens when a child goes away to school is very quickly are told the message: don't upset your parents, don't express to them that you're homesick, don't disappoint them because this is such a privilege for you to go, such an opportunity. So they never express it. So one of the hardest things for people to do, whatever the age they are, whether they're 10, 20, or 50, is ever tell their parents, actually, it may not have been the best thing for me. And this is something that I can imagine could be so powerful in constellation work because they could act that out. So
Absolutely.
often, a lot of people I will work with in their 70s, whose parents have died. And it's like it's too late for me to have those conversations to actually say, why did you send me away? They never get those answers and they don't feel they can because they don't want to rock the boat.
And
Um,
what's more, I want to say something about sometimes it's a bit like you saying when you saw the person who represented your dad and you were so angry with him, right? You couldn't even feel you're missing him. You were angry with him.
yeah,
Now, so often people, as you say, they're not allowed to say they miss someone, and they're certainly not allowed to say they're angry with them for what they did.
exactly. Yeah.
And so they've got so accustomed to pushing that down and repressing it, someone else can do it for them. Oh my God.
Ah,
You know,
right.
so
Yes,
it
because they
might
get
be
to let
that
someone else act it out. Yeah.
yeah, someone else might howl the wail of anguish. Somebody else might scream out the rage because, and for the person watching it, they're like, oh my God. And they don't even know they've got that rage in them, but everybody else in the group can feel it. Everybody else in the group is going,
Mm.
no, you really need to shout. And the
Yeah.
the, the person's going, I didn't like you doing that. And everyone in the group's going, no, no, you need to really, really let rip. And
Yeah.
and sometimes someone else in the group has to do it for them until they learn that
Yeah.
it's all right. So yeah, I've learned that it's all right. It's a bit
It's all right. I guess.
minimizing things again.
No, it's all right. And then the other, I guess, the aspect of transgenerational trauma, and I think this is such a huge part, as you mentioned at the beginning, for ex borders. But what the process often that I take people through is because they shut down their feelings, it's not okay to express your feelings.
Mm.
Um, so therefore, it's that don't upset mother feeling. And then when they get to a place of actually realizing they have got a right to be upset, to be angry, to be cross, then they can move very much into a place of feeling so much rage against their parents for making that decision.
Yeah,
And that's a really important stage because it needs to come out.
yeah,
And then later along the path of healing as such, we can get to a place of trying to think, well, what was it? Why did my mum make that decision? What was going on for her in her background that caused her to make that decision? And it may have been because she came from a line of ex-boarders. It may not have been. It may have been to do with something else that
yeah,
also caused that detachment or that lack of belief or that actually family relationships are important. And
yeah.
this is what constellation work can bring to the forefront for.
Absolutely. Or the inability of the mother to be able to fully embrace and love her child in the way that she would love to, as well as in the way that the child would have longed for her to do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So it can
yeah,
provide answers.
yeah,
That's what I think is incredible about it, which can move towards some kind of sense of forgiveness, which is, I think, a huge part of healing at times to be able
yeah,
to do that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so incredibly powerful. Well, there you go.
Forward to our
Thank
day.
you,
I think it's
Liz.
going to be great.
No, absolutely. So we're hoping to do this. So we'll put out details when we have the date and when we know what we're going to do.
Yeah,
But I think it's going to be wonderful to
yeah,
work with you and to bring this together and to see what happens. Uh,
yeah. I look forward to it.
so
Uh,
yeah, thank you for the conversation.
with all of your experience of boarding schools and its
Mm,
impact and my
mm.
little constellation thing, it's going to be
Your
great.
very big constellation thing. It's
Oh,
not
whatever. It's going to
very
be really good.
powerful.
It's going to be really good.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
Liz. All right. See you soon. Bye.
Cheerio. Bye.